coming with the Event Carnell, Tone Talks, my YouTube channel. And we're just going to have a little bit of a discussion here about Hillary Clinton, about Bernie Sanders, about the Democratic Party and where we're at, and definitely some of the critiques that we've seen as we go through and come to Super Tuesday, and just kind of get a grasp on things. Because this, it's a trip because for me, this is everything that '08 should have been. '08 was the simple election, and this is like the substantive election, and we're actually not discussing.
Not no more.
I'm just happy to be having some kind of discussion about topics rather than what people look like. And so, I'll allow you to start off and just talk a little bit about what you think about the Clintons and Hillary and her campaign so far.
I mean, I think Hillary was. I think Hillary. I always said that I thought Hillary was going to ring it out in the end, was going to win in the end, but it just as we went on, it just became more and more difficult to kind of figure out what that path to victory was against the Republican. But I honestly think, we're talking the day that they found Scalia dead, and I honestly think that changes everything. I think that changes the whole conversation.
Why so?
Well, because all of it really, a lot of it depends on how Obama plays it, right? But what you have now, and I can't really deal with how people or tell why people see Hillary the way they do. But people see Hillary as this kind of tested, Golda Meir kind of candidate, right? They see her as this tested and tried and true electable candidate. And I don't think people see Bernie that way. People see Bernie as like the older guy, this older Jewish fellow who's right on the politics. And even though the poll shows that he's kind of neck and neck in terms of beating Trump, right? But I think now with Scalia, with this whole thing going on, I think the base is energized, and I think, the question is going to become, because even if Obama starts trying to appoint someone, which he should, this is going to go on for a long time. So this is going to be looming over the debate, the question of, well, what if Obama can't get this person through? The next person, we got to get somebody that's electable to get the person through. You know what I mean? And I think that person is going to be Hillary Clinton.
And I agree with that. I think that the Scalia discussion allows us to pivot from a substantive discussion of what America needs to who is going to be the next Supreme Court justice, and that is a bit of an escape route. But yep. I do think that it's a bit much to think that what we're talking about when we look at Bernie is a candidate versus a message. And I think that's where people are missing it. It's not whether Bernie is electable. What it's more so about is pulling somebody who's really a center-based politician to the left. And he's a sounding board, if we've ever had one, of a populist message that forces the Clintons to confront their history, particularly their history with African Americans. I mean, when you have one person on the stage say, I'm going to release half the prisoners, and probably half of them are going to be African American males when he does it, and your message back is like, yeah, prisons are bad. And you put people in the prisons, it's kind of like it puts you in a position where it's like, this dude just throwing all the cards on the table. And so, does that get through? Does Bernie get elected? But I definitely think that is a very, very powerful moment to have these discussions with somebody who represents the new Democrat that in so many ways, is part of an administration. And when I say part of an administration, people really got to step back and understand Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's understanding partnership and marriage. Because I think that they think of it in the traditional sense, or even in the Obama sense, where you're a real first lady, and it just wasn't that. This is kind of she was part of his policies, and she even spoke on his policies. As an example, calling blacks super predators.
Not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
And so now for her to use that leverage as a Clinton throughout the South is perfectly within her power. But you can't use it and then say she's separate when it comes to judging what the Clintons actually were when Black America tries to correct you.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. You can't have it both ways. You can't come up, on the coattails of your husband, and then, because you didn't have that kind of career. You didn't have anything that would have catapulted you to be a senator for New York when on your own resume. You just didn't have. You didn't have anything that would have put you at the State Department. You just didn't have it. So you got that because people said, well, her and Clinton are a team. She's done the stuff that he's done. They work together. But now people want to be like, oh, they don't work together. She's her own woman. She's her separate. No, you can't. Either you work together or you don't. And since you got here by the idea that you work together, and we all know you work together for real, then that's where you are. Period.
And it's really interesting that we haven't seen the discussion contrasting it to the Bushes, because in many ways the Bushes are what everybody is saying the Clintons are. Meaning, fundamentally, Jeb Bush's career is entirely separate from George's.
Yeah.
Let me say, it stands on its own. Let me not say entirely. It stands on its own separate.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
But like, oddly enough, people are really connecting him to the Bush name even more so. And so, like, you fundamentally with Hillary, it really brings about this greater discussion about feminism and independent power, because I mean, in so many ways, this is like the second term for the Clintons, and the first time was a term for the Clintons. And so, like, it's really interesting dialogue, because it doesn't allow Black America to get honest about the Clintons and who the Clintons actually were. And this is just like fact. You can look it up yourself. You can look at Michelle Alexander's piece. I have a piece that's coming out called Hillary Clinton should apologize to Black America before she asks for our votes. And what essentially the position is that coming out of Reagan, coming out of Bush, the Democrats were beaten. I mean, they hadn't had a president since Carter, and they were really just looking for a way to get back in the White House. And the way that they used it, the method they used, was essentially to create the New Democrat. The New Democrat was going to be hard on blacks, was going to pander to the middle-class white person, and essentially at the same time play symbolism for Black America, so Black America would still vote for them. And what ended up happening is that when Clinton gets into office, from a policy standpoint, he actually was detrimental to Black America. But from an actual presentation standpoint, he was, as Toni Morrison is all too often quoted, the first Black president. And so, like, you end up in this position where Black America cannot get past the imagery to get to the substance. And the substance is what has actually eaten their families and their communities alive. And this is what Bill Clinton has apologized for as well. So it's not like I'm making this up.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is he came in and, whenever you people talk about dog whistles, whenever you hear, and you heard this a lot during the Clinton administration, because Clinton decided that they were going to beat Republicans by becoming Republicans. Part of the reason Republicans have always been so upset at the Clintons is because, and the reason we have these far-right Republicans is that the Democrats haven't left them any room to run but to the far right, because they've co-opted everything else. They've co-opted all of that other ground, right? So when people talk about mainstream voters, they're not talking about black people. They're talking about middle class, suburban, middle class and upper class white people who live in the suburbs. And that's who they're talking about. But we're painted as, poor people in urban areas are painted as morally deficient, as opposed to talking about the foundational issues that create this sort of behavior and dysfunction. This comes out of poverty. Like, this sort of behavior is raggedy schools, no jobs, no capital. And so, yeah, you have crime and other things, but this is painted, and it was painted by the Clintons as morally. I mean, people don't remember that it was Bill Clinton who said after they called the LA riots like something that comes out of a culture of poverty. He said the LA riots. He didn't say anything about the conditions or what happened or people being beat by the police. He didn't say anything about all that other stuff. He just said it was a culture of poverty, and that's how we were painted. Like, he was like a Bull Connor. People say that people always blame Republicans for like playing this racist game, whatever. Like, Bill Clinton did it better than anybody.
And I definitely agree. And I did the documentary Freeway Cracking the System, detailed the war on drugs, detailed the dynamic of it all. It's just so interesting that when you start to like say Clinton, people automatically think liberal. And when you look at his 94 criminal justice bill, which we'll get into a little bit more, that everybody says everybody supported. It was his bill. It was his bill that he signed and he pushed for. And what it did is essentially it monetized black male failure. By that I mean, it wasn't just black men went to prison. It was a lot of money sent to states to put black men in prison, creating a lot of jobs. And so like you even go a step further, and nobody's really discussed this. I kind of talk about it in my 96 in my piece on it. But the 96 Telecom Act was so destructive to black wealth that, you know, people, and it's surprising nobody talks about. I mean, what you had in 96 when he signed that is a move from having black radio, having some black TV, to essentially being co-opted and Viacom and Clear Channel owning everything that we do. And so, like, you know, you deal with this dynamic of the welfare reforms that he implemented. You do it on every level. The policies that were implemented were detrimental to black people. The one thing that everybody loves to hang on is the economy, and the fundamental problem with that is it wasn't sound. It was subprimes. It was subprime loans. It wasn't like yeah, you got to live in a house between 92 and 98, and Clinton put you there. But he's part of the reason that your house got foreclosed on when he repealed Glass-Steagall and allowed these banks loose. And so, like, you know, just the gist of it, black people really need to dig deeper, understand who they're voting for, understand why they're voting for them. And even if you do decide to say people have the power to change, demand that they say what that change is.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, you have to instead of giving these like broad strokes, right? First of all, I wouldn't give the Clintons a chance, even if they said, you know, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't think you deserve a shot. I think the black community, at least now, I don't know about what the white community should do for you, but in the black community, you should be vanquished. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't, after everything you've done, after how you debilitated us, I don't even care what you say about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You have a record, and your record, insofar as black people are concerned, is enough for us to be like, I don't care. You're not. It's just not going to happen.
But for me, I mean, I guess what I see is I'm dealing with the reality of choices, and I think that this is a power play moment that Black America is missing. And when I say that, I mean even if you got her on stage to commit things, I mean you had Bernie Sanders on stage commit to releasing half the prison population. You had Bernie Sanders on stage literally state that half of black wealth was destroyed by the foreclosure. I mean, these are statements that if you look back at 08, they weren't even in the discussion. I mean, we had a black face on the stage, but as far as these type of discussions, they just were a no-go. It was the year where we talk about mass incarceration, where we talk about income equality in hard numbers. And in 08, it just feels like everybody thought that stuff happened, and that's why they were crying. And so, like, here we are where we've had the discussion said, but how do we get the main candidate to commit to a fix for those things, particularly if that main candidate is a major component to the creation of the problem? You should be the first person that structures how that's corrected. I have one young lady, and it actually, funny enough, was on your page, where she made a powerful statement. She said, let's not even think about reparations for slavery. What about reparations for prison? And I was taken back for a second because I never thought of it that way. And I don't think it would fly through water. But I mean, fundamentally, if you're apologizing, in my documentary, I have the guy that wrote the crack sentencing law, along with one of the legislators. And what he does is he apologizes to Black America for writing that law. He says it was written on hysteria. He said that there was no research. He said that there was no review. And so, like, when you get Bill Clinton to apologize or to allude to an apology for his bill, yeah, that's great, Bill, but what are you going to do to fix what you messed up? And that's the question that Black America, Black Lives Matter has not put to the fire.
Well, that's what we never, but that's not new. Like, we never do that. Like, we always stop at the apology, like it's some kind of cathartic, like our politicians are our therapists, in the sense of, as long as they say something to make us feel good, and we have this cathartic moment where, they actually feel bad about what they did, then that's kind of where we stop. And we don't think about, wait a minute, if this person said that they did something wrong, like how do we repair this? It's just like going to the doctor. You don't go to the doctor and if he's done something wrong, let's say he left something inside him, he said, I'm so sorry, I left the scissors in you. I'm so sorry, I apologize. You don't leave without him getting the scissors out, do you? You know what I mean? You say, okay, go in and get them out. We see him on the X-ray, let's get them out. But we don't do that. We're happy with the apology. We're happy. We're just like, no, what is the next step beyond done this, if you admit that this stuff was really foul, then what specific plan, not just some general, I'm going to do something about mass incarceration. Tell me what your specific plan is on day one. You know, and I need something on the books in the first 100 days. I'm not talking about anything 2, 3, 4 years down the line that's more important. No, our people are in jail for non-violent offenses a lot of times. I'm not just talking about that. So you have to have something specific that you're going to put forth in the first 100 days. That's what you call an ask. That's an exchange for your vote. We're not good with the exchange. We accept symbolism and go out and vote. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I'm seeing that's disheartening is black people don't seem to believe in themselves. And that's part of the attack on Bernie Sanders. So he has a populist message. He says these things that black people absolutely need along with others, and the argument goes he'll never get it through. Well, that doesn't really work if you actually need what he's actually talking about. It's, it still needs to be put forward. And so, like I said before, I don't think that Bernie Sanders necessarily is per se the answer. But I do think that in a lot of ways, he's pulling a centered candidate farther to the left than she's comfortable being. And I think Black America, as a result, needs to understand, I keep hearing, and I've heard you even allude to it on a cultural level, but I think these people that I've heard from, like Mayor Nutter, where black people are not monolithic. Mayor Nutter needs to talk to some economists and really start to see like where black people are placed on the economic ladder. I'm gonna put a chart up right now at this point in the conversation. I'm gonna show you guys how white people tier up over percentiles of their lives of their group for wealth wise, and then how black people do. And so like the top 5% of black people have 350. The 5% of black households have $350,000 assets or more. As you go down, it gets black really fast. Most black people don't have many assets. The middle black family, as I wrote on inequality.org, has $1,700 when you deduct durable goods. $1,700. So what that means is that black people, whether we want to accept it or not, are in large part composed of working poor. This is just the reality of our situation. So as a result, when you do things for the working poor or even the poor that don't have jobs, you effectively help black people. And I understand those black people who are in the top 5% that have too much voice in this political process and in the media don't really get that because they live amongst each other. But there's 14 million black households. Only 700,000 have more than $350,000. 700,000.
Yeah, and I think the point you make is true. This is what black people need to understand when they make we're not monolithic argument. Yes, we got black boys that like robots and like to create computer games, and we have black boys who like trap music. Okay, in cultural areas, yes, there are definitely ways we're not monolithic, but money is one area where we're pretty monolithic. You know what I mean? So it's not. So when you say you're not monolithic, you're talking about a lot of stuff that doesn't matter a lot, except for in the interactions of human beings. But when you're talking about money, we're pretty monolithic. Now, we do have some black people with a little bit of money, like you said, that group you're talking about, and you include a lot of Congress people and politicians and celebrities in that group, and those people fight really hard to use poor black people and leverage poor black people, for policies and all kinds of stuff, so they can get the hook up and rise to the top in terms of getting a cabinet position or getting money for their specific campaign or whatever the case may be, and they leverage that. So they're part of the problem too. But I think people need to understand what we mean when we're not monolithic. When we talk about not being monolithic, that doesn't mean money. Like with money, we're pretty monolithic. Like, we only have a few people who have like 350, and that's not even the top tier, near the top tier of the white people in that same thing. That's like
only 140,000 black homes have over $1 million too. Over $1 million too, and that's in hard assets. That's not even liquid money. Most of that is their house. And so no, you have 8 million. 10% of white homes have more than $1 million too. And so when you deal with that reality, and you might say, well, it's more white people than black people. You need to do the numbers. I'm talking about less than 1% of black families have more than $1 million too. Less than 5% have more than $350,000. And so when you start to deal with the reality that you have 80 million white homes, 10% have more than $1 million too. 30% have more than $350,000, nearly 23 million homes. Their reality is more of a spread, less monolithic in terms of economics. And because our reality is so monolithic on the economic level, the attacks that Black America has made on Bernie Sanders are just like low-hanging fruit to me. I mean, they're sitting up and screaming at Bernie Sanders about everything from reparation